Alright, so we won the die roll here. Gonna be on the play. And Black Lotus is a great card to have on the play. We actually have Ancient Tomb into Black Lotus into Tezzeret here. That's pretty awesome. So definitely going to keep this hand. And just trying to think what we want to do with our Tezzeret once we get it into play here. So let's go ahead. Ancient Tomb, Black Lotus, sack for 3 blue, and then play Tezzeret. So I definitely think that's all well and good. Now the question is, what do we want to do with Tezzeret now that it's in play? I think we can probably plus it this turn. Alright, let's go ahead and plus it. And we also have Solemn Simulacrum in our deck, which is a pretty reasonable card we can get with it next turn if we want to. We also have this Oath of Druids, and we drew Baleful Strix. So we can definitely play the Gruul Signet that we have, and we're going to have access to a reasonable amount of mana. There's also Mox Diamond in our deck as well, so we've got a few different cards we can call upon here if we want to. Rishat Import is also a card that would allow us to almost lock our opponent out of the game, because we can get Winter Orb, and then our opponent's just not going to have that much they can do. So I think we want to minus it for 2 here. It's minus Tezzeret for 2, and we see here the Winter Orb that we can get. And that way we don't even need to play another creature. We can kind of just try to lock our opponent out of the game this way. We also have Hedron Archive that we can get in the future. But the reason why I like getting the Winter Orb now is that we don't really have anything to ramp into yet in our hand. And this card is just so powerful, and it looks like our opponent's just going to immediately concede. So our opponent might have immediately conceded to not want to show us anything in their deck, just because our start was so absurd. Our start was just so absurd. Even for a cube deck, turn 1 Tezzeret the Seeker is just like, okay, I mean, on the play no less. We basically had the nuts. So now we got to think about sideboarding, but since our opponent didn't really show us much, we are just going to keep our deck the same, I think. And go to game 2 here. It's pretty nice when your opponent just scoops on turn 2 after, and I mean, it's just, Magic can be just such a crazy game sometimes. Alright, here we have, like, a fair hand. But I think I'm going to keep this. We don't have the Black Lotus in our hand, but we do have a Trinket Mage. And our opponent is playing Lotus Bloom, the mock Black Lotus, if you will. The wannabe Black Lotus. And we've got a Vidalcan Shackles on top. I'm going to bottom it. We may choose to search for it with Tezzeret later, but we don't really know that our opponent is even playing that many creatures in their deck yet. So, okay, here's an Azorius Signet. So we're just going to play the Signet game for a moment. And then we can decide what we're going to get with the Trinket Mage next turn. Or wait, of course we're just going to get Black Lotus. Sorry about that. So, it looks like our opponent is just going to pass here. And we drew a Swamp. So, yeah, I like just going ahead and playing Trinket Mage here. We'll see if our opponent has some sort of a counter spell for it or what. Looks like no counter, so we're definitely going to choose to use the ability and find Black Lotus. Lotus is just so unbelievably powerful. But now our opponent is going to get to play a Lotus Bloom of their own. So we'll see what our opponent actually has here. Looks like they have access to 8 mana total, which is a lot. And we'll see if this is going to involve cracking the Lotus Bloom. No, it's just going to be a Thragtusk. Okay. I think that's something that we can handle. We just have to be careful about it. So here we've definitely got a few options, but I think our best option is just playing Tezzeret. We don't need to put the Black Lotus into play yet. And we do have Baleful Strix in our deck, which we can find if we want to. I guess I'm fine with just playing the Black Lotus. In case our opponent has something like a Mana Leak, we would want to potentially sacrifice it. Hopefully that doesn't bite us. So yeah, I'm just going to -2 the Tezzeret. And I think we want to get Baleful Strix here for blocking purposes. Because we want to keep our Tezzeret alive. And our opponent's pretty incentivized to attack it with the Thragtusk this turn. So we'll see what exactly our opponent has. They definitely have access to a lot of mana, but I'm not really sure exactly. I mean, we haven't seen much of our opponent's deck yet, so it's pretty unclear what exactly they are trying to do. But we're definitely just going to make this block to keep our Tezzeret in play. And another card we can potentially find with Tezzeret is our Mox Diamond. So that could help us generate even more mana. So our opponent is going to go for Dragon Lord Dramoka here. and then they are going to pass the turn to us. So, Dragon Lord Dromoka is definitely a pretty powerful card. And so the question becomes, what now, essentially? We've got access to a lot of mana here. Not quite enough for Blightsteel Colossus, however. We could go for Villainous Wealth, though, and just kind of see what it hits. We don't know exactly what's in our opponent's deck, but it seems like a reasonable play. Another line is to play the Den Protector and get back the Baleful Strix. And I kind of like that, because being able to block the Dragon Lord Dromoka is clearly potentially something that is going to be important. On the other hand, Den Protector could get back Villainous Wealth or something similar in the future. So we could just go for a big Villainous Wealth, though that would involve sacrificing our Black Lotus. I think I like actually just playing the Den Protector and getting back our Baleful Strix. So let's play the Den Protector face down. And then what we are going to do here is we can use the... Well, we actually can use the Tezzeret in a couple of different ways. We may want to use Tezzeret to find Mox Diamond. We could also use it to untap the Gruul Signet. I think that decision is pretty close. But I like using it to... Well, yeah, let's go ahead and grab the Mox Diamond here. So we are actually just going to use the Tezzeret for 0 to get Mox Diamond. And we can discard the Breeding Pool to it. Then we can flip up this Den Protector to get back our Baleful Strix and play it. So we still have our Black Lotus in play. And I think that's a pretty good turn for us. It could be that our opponent has a removal for the Baleful Strix, has a removal spell, and then kills our Tezzeret. But you know what? That's not the end of the world. We can still refuel next turn pretty easily. Alright, it looks like Reflector Mage, which actually isn't even a real removal spell. It does bounce our Baleful Strix, which is a little bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. And we'll see if our opponent... Yep, our opponent is actually going to pop the Lotus Bloom here for a Batterskull. Batterskull's a pretty powerful card. Not gonna lie about that one. So, yep, the Dromoka is going to come at Tezzeret, as expected. So, now we do have access to 11 mana, including a sacrifice of the Black Lotus. Blightsteel Colossus, unfortunately, costs 12, so we cannot cast it this turn, which is definitely unfortunate. I think we're fine with just waiting on the Blightsteel and going for a big Villainous Wealth. And I think we do want to sacrifice the Black Lotus here to the Villainous Wealth to just maximize what we can hit from our opponent. So, yep, let's do it. Let's go for it. And hopefully our opponent's got more good stuff in their deck. We've seen our opponent play some pretty powerful cards up to this point. Hopefully there's more waiting for us. Alright, so we hit... what we hit is pretty interesting. It's not the best for us, but we'll see what we can do with it. Let's see. Genesis Wave. We aren't really going to be able to do anything with. The Wolfer Silverheart we can definitely use to our advantage. So yeah, the Wolfer Silverheart we can actually pair with our Den Protector. So that seems like the most important card that we hit out of these 6 spells. These definitely aren't the spells that I was hoping for, to be honest, but we will make do. So I'm going to pair the Silverheart with Den Protector. Kitchen Finks is going to come into play. And, of course, the Genesis Wave we can't pay mana for, so... yeah, this Everflowing Chalice is not actually going to produce mana for us, but we can get in now with our Den Protector. The good thing about these small creatures is they are going to help us ramp towards the Blightsteel Colossus. And, okay, there's a Declaration in Stone. That is going to give us a clue. But it does mean that the Wolfer Silverheart is down. And our opponent's making a very aggressive attack here. So it's definitely time to line up some blocks. I'm going to put the Sakura in front of the Batterskull. That's going to prevent our opponent from gaining life with the Germ Token. The Finks is going to go in front of the Beast. And the question is, do we want to block the Reflector Mage or not? And I don't think we need to. So I'm just going to block like this. Sacrifice the Sakura. And yeah, we want to get an island to make a potential Vidalcan Shackles better. And our draw, okay, it's a forest. So we've got a Fyndhorn Elves in play. So let's see, 5, 6. It looks like we are still 1 mana short from being able to cast the Blightsteel Colossus this turn, which is a little bit unfortunate. So instead, let's go ahead and play the Baleful Strix to start. And we got a Solemn Simulacrum. That's not a bad one. We also have a Clue token, which we can pop. So let's go ahead and pop our Clue. It's going to give us a land. So we're going to just play Solemn Simulacrum here. getting the last island out of our deck. And then we can also play Shelldock Isle. So I think we want to grab the Apex Predator. Yeah, let's grab that with our Shelldock Isle. And we're not going to attack here, so we're just going to pass back. Our opponent is at a pretty high life total, so that is something we do need to worry about a little bit. And the Germ token predictably is going to attack us. So I think the two choices are to take it or chump block with our Solemn Simulacrum. And out of those two choices, well, we can also double block here just to kill off the Germ. And there may be a reasonable amount of value to that. But I think we're just working up towards Blightsteel Colossus. So I'm just going to block here with the Solemn, and that's going to be it. And we found a Shardless Agent. Okay. There's actually not that much still on our deck that we would want to Shardless Agent into. So looking at Garruk, we could use Garruk to get rid of the Dragon Lord Jamoka. That's definitely a reasonable play. We do have to also think about how we're going to kill our opponent. Alright, so we've got access to 6, 8, 12 mana total. So this seems like a prime opportunity to just play Blightsteel Colossus. And I think we want to do that. Alright, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We're just going to cast Blightsteel. And Blightsteel Colossus definitely is a card that can allow us to win the game, even in this sort of a situation where our opponent's at such a high life total that we might not otherwise be able to win. But, of course, Blightsteel Colossus deals damage with Infect, so that is extremely important in this scenario. And, we're of course hoping our opponent doesn't have some sort of removal spell for the Blightsteel Colossus. Otherwise, we might just not have enough win conditions left in our deck to actually close this one out. So we'll see if our opponent is going to make an attack. It looks like the answer is no. And we actually see our opponent has a Karakas in play. But Blightsteel Colossus is not a legendary creature. So that is good news. Definitely good news. So, alright, let's go ahead and get in with the Colossus and see how our opponent is going to block here. It looks like just a chump block with Reflector Mage. That I do not mind. And we might as well play our Apex Predator now off the Shelldock Isle. And so we've definitely got options in terms of how we want to use this card. Plussing it seems reasonable. Our opponent's at 8 infect, which is definitely a lot of infect. Yeah. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the Dramoka because it's very annoying. Although I guess our opponent could have in response used Caracas, but they did not. Wasn't thinking about that at the time. So just going to play Rashad Import and the Gilded Lotus. I don't think we need to play Charlotte's Agent, nor do we have enough stuff in our deck that would warrant playing it. So we're going to tap down the Caracas here. And our opponent's just down to 2 cards. We'll see if... Okay, it's going to be Ancestral Recall. That's 3 new cards, 3 redraws, essentially, for our opponent. But it looks like they did not find it. And Blightsteel Colossus is going to take this down.